We continue now at the top of Daf Samech Beis Amud Aleph in Meseches Nazir. This is Nazir Daf 62a. The Gemara is continuing to explain how we know that an Ovid Kochavim, a non-Jew, is not part of the laws of Nazirus. And the Gemara said it's learned out from the words B'nai Yisrael. We understand that to mean that it refers to the Jewish people and not the non-Jews. But then the Gemara said, no, maybe there is an alternate way we can understand the pasuk, similar to the way we understand it by Erchin, that the pasuk, when it says B'nai Yisrael, is simply excluding the non-Jews from the halacha that a son is able to shave on the Nazirus of his father. Meaning to say, let's say a person's father was a Nazir and he separated karbanos and then he died, so then the son could use those karbanos for his own Nazirus. So maybe that's what we're excluding when we say B'nai Yisrael, that an Ovid Kochavim is not part of that halacha, but Yochol Lo Yehu Nazir. And maybe I would think that a non-Jew is not a Nazir at all, Talmud Lomar Ish, and that's again similar to what we say by Erchin. The pasuk says Ish, and therefore this would not be a good pasuk to completely exclude an Ovid Kochavim from Nazirus. And again, the Gemara answers similar to what it answered on the previous Amud, Ha'itmar, but it was already said, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, that Rabbi Yochanan said, Halacha ben Nazir, this idea that a son can shave on the Nazirus of his father is a halacha l'Moshe Misinai by Nazir, and therefore you cannot use a pasuk when you have something that is a halacha l'Moshe Misinai. You can't use a pasuk for a drasha with regards to that halacha. And the Gemara continues, Ihachi, if so, and the Gemara takes out the words Ihachi, and the Gemara begins as follows, Ish ki afli neder be'erkecha barochin lamali. Question of the Gemara is, when it says the pasuk by Erchin, it says the word Ish, so we used that earlier to say that non-Jews are included somewhat in the halachas of Erchin, but what do we really need the word Ish for, to use for that drasha? Mechdi, let us see, ha'izkish Erchin l'nedarim. We already know that there's a comparison between Erchin and nedarim. Diamar Kra, because the pasuk says, Ish ki afli neder be'erkecha, uses the word neder, talks about be'erkecha, talks about Erchin. Therefore, we know there's a comparison between a Nedarim and Erchin. V'atanyan, we learned in a Brisa, Gabi Nedarim, when it comes to Nedarim, Ish matamid lomar Ish, what does the pasuk say Ish for? L'ravos es ha'ovdei kochavim shem nodrim, Nedarim u'nedavos ki Yisrael. The pasuk comes to say that non-Jews, just like Jews, they're also able to make vows, Nedarim and Nedavos, just like Yisrael, just like Jews. And so therefore we would understand, just like you have by Nedarim, that the non-Jews are included at some level, it should be obvious by Erchin as well that non-Jews should be included at some level. So Ish ki yafli be'erchin lamali. So what do we need the word Ish for by Erchin to say that non-Jews are included at some level? It should be obvious from the comparison between Erchin and Nedarim. And so the Gemara says, Ella rather, Hai ish mi boy le suye mufla samach ish. What the pasuk is coming is to tell us there's a halacha of mufla samach ish when it comes to nedarim. So even if a person is not an adult, even if he's mufla samach ish, he's close to the age of adulthood and he's able to understand nedarim, he's also included in the halachas of nedarim. That's what we learn from the word ish. But the Gemara says, Hanichal man amar mufla samach lish doraisa. That's good according to the one who says that the concept of mufla samach lish is a concept on a doraisa level. We understand we're learning it from a pasuk. Ela man amar derabanan. But according to the one who says that the concept of mufla samach lish is only derabanan, so ish ki yafli lamali. So what do we need the pasuk again of ish ki yafli? And so the Gemara says to that, leisuye mufla samach lish to over kochavim. That comes to include a mufla samach lish of a non-Jew. In other words, when it comes to a Jew, you're right. So it's only, it didn't mean the Rabbanan, it would come out over here, that when it comes to a mufla samach leish in terms of a non-Jew by Nedarim, so that actually would be a doraisa, that would be learned from that pasuk. But the Gemara continues, Hanichol man damar b'nei Yisrael ne'arachin, ve'ino ovdei kochavim ne'arachin. Now this actually only works out according to the one who says that we understand that Jews are ne'arachin, but ovdei kochavim are not ne'arachin, meaning you can't give the value of a non-Jew, the erech of a non-Jew to the Beis HaMikdash. Yachol lo yu ma'arichin. Now I might think that non-Jews are not able to declare and to say that they're going to give an erech. Talmud lomar ish, so the pasuk says ish, so shaper, so that it makes sense. What the Gemara here means to say is, there is a man damar who holds that non-Jews are not able to be used as the basis for the amount you're going to donate. You can't say I'm going to donate the erech of the non-Jew to the Beis HaMikdash, but that shita actually holds that a non-Jew is able to declare erchin. The non-Jew is able to say that I'm going to donate this erech to the Beis HaMikdash. So then it works out, it would make sense that you have to have a pasuk to say that mufla samach leish, the non-Jew doesn't have to be an adult. Even if the non-Jew is just a mufla samach leish, is close to adulthood, then he's also allowed to be marich. But according to the one who says the other way around, this is what we learned on the previous daf, that Jews are able to be marich, but non-Jews are not able to be marich at all. They're not even included. They can't declare erchin. They can't say I'm donating this particular value to the Beis HaMikdash. Yachol lo yu nerachin. And what we really say is, I might have thought that a non-Jew, you can't use the non-Jew as a basis for the amount you're going to donate. Talmud lomar ish, the pasuk says ish. And that tells us again that non-Jews are nerachin. So that we already know that a non-Jew who's a minor is included in that. Afilu tinok ben chodesh bar iruchehu. Even if you have a child just a month old, of course there's a value there, and of course you can use that child as a basis for the amount you're going to donate to the Beis HaMikdash. And so that brings us back to our original question. So now kiyafli lamali. So now what do we need kiyafli for? Again, the Gemara had understood that kiyafli was saying to include mufla samach leish. But here, if you're only talking about ne'erachin by non-Jews, because we were including again mufla samach leish by non-Jews, but if you only included the fact that it's ne'erachin, it's obvious that a minor is included. So what do we need kiyafli for? And so the Gemara says to that, Amar Ravada bar Ava says, Leisuye Ovid Kochavim Gadol. We're talking here about to include in Ovid Kochavim a non-Jew who's an adult, the Afal Gav the Gadol who Eino Yodei Lahaflos. That even though he's an adult, still he's not able to be part of these halachas of Nedarim if he doesn't understand the concept of Nedarim. It's really coming in a sense as an exclusion. It's saying Ish Kiyafli, only the adult who knows how to make Nedarim. That's not true by Jews. By a Jew who's an adult, he's automatically part of Nedarim, even if he doesn't really understand Nedarim. But when it comes to the non-Jew, if he's Eino Yodei Lahaflos, so he's not going to be included even if he's an adult. And Tosas explain, it's good according to the one who says that Bnei Yisrael, they are ne'erachin, but not non-Jews. I might think non-Jews are not able to declare erchin. Talmud lo marish, the pasuk says ish, and that tells us that a non-Jew is able to declare erchin. So then, according to that approach, vada yesh lomar, da'asa ish lomar, di'over kochavim mufla samach leish, yachol harich. It makes sense then to say that the word ish is coming to say that a non-Jew, even if he's mufla samach leish, even if he's close to the age of adulthood, he's able to be marich. But if you're going to say that really the Ovdei Kochavim are included in erchin in terms of ne'erachin, in terms of using them as a basis for the value, so that's true even when they're a month old, so then you wouldn't need the pasuk for mufla samach leish. You already would understand that a katan is included, and so then the Gemara explained leisuye Ovid Kochavim gadol. Really the pasuk is coming to include in Ovid Kochavim who is an adult, and as we explain Kolomar, what it means is as follows. Le'ashmin, and it's teaching us the afal gav the gadol, even though the Ovid Kochavim is an adult, imeino yodei lahaflos, if he doesn't know, if he doesn't understand the Nedarim, lo have a nidro neder. So the neder will not be a good neder. We're really coming to exclude that situation from a non-Jew. Mashein can it be Yisrael? That's not true by Yisrael. De lo bainon yodei lahaflos begadol. Once he's an adult, he doesn't need to understand the Nedarim. Automatically, the neder will be chal. And Tosas points out, v'hayed the kamer, that which we said earlier, yachol lo yunarachin tamid lomar ish. We learned from ish that we say that the non-Jews are included in ne'erachin, they're included somewhat in erchin, and we're not using the comparison between nedarim and erchin. And so Tosas say lav dafka, that's lav dafka. El asmachta bialma, that's just an asmachta, it's just a hint to this idea. The ikar kruk, because really the pasuk of ish is coming to tell us, it's coming to tell us, l'gadol she'eino yodei lahaflos. For an adult, again, who doesn't understand nedarim, v'ne'erachin misvara mikra denodrim nedavas kisrael. And again, the concept of ne'erachin, that's just from a svara, because we understand there's an automatic comparison to nedarim and nedavas and erchin. And the Gemara continues, Eloki Yafli, the Kasav Rachmana Gabi Nazirus Lamali. So what do we need the pasuk by Nazirus? It also uses the expression of Kiyafli. Because let us see, Ha'iskish Nazirus Lenedarim. We already understand that Nazirus is compared to Nedarim. So what does Kiyafli come to teach us? And the Gemara says Kiyafli Lamali. Again, what is Kiyafli for? And the Gemara answers, Leisuya Yodayim She'enon Mochichos. What that comes to include is, let's say a person declares a neder, but it's Yodayim She'enon Mochichos. He only says part of the statement. It's not 100% clear what he's saying. The Itmar, as we learned the following Machlokes Amoraim, Yadayim She'enon Mochichos. When it comes to Yadayim She'enon Mochichos, Abaya Amar Havin Yadayim. Abaya says that is a good neder, that is considered Yadayim, and Rava Amar Lo Havin Yadayim. And Rava says it's not considered a good neder, and that's what the pasuk Kiyafli is including. It's including Yadayim She'enon Mochichos according to Abaya. And the Gemara says, Li Abaya Nicha. Well, that's a good answer according to Abaya. Ela Rava, Ma'ikol Memar. But according to Rava, what are you going to answer? And the Gemara says, Ela Kiyafli mi boy leilachid Rabbi Tarfon. Rather, according to Rava, we'll say that Kiyafli is used for Rabbi Tarfon's teaching. The Tanya, as we learned in a Brisa, Rabbi Yehuda Omer Mishum Rabbi Tarfon. Rabbi Yehuda says in the name of Rabbi Tarfon, Ein echad mehen nazir lefisha lo nitzna naziros ela la'afla. The halacha is that none of them are considered a nazir according to Rabbi Tarfon. Anytime a person declares a nazirus and it's dependent dependent on some condition that we're only going to find out about later on, so that's not considered a Nazirus because it has to be a hafla, it has to be a clear declaration of Nazirus. Otherwise, it's not going to be a Nazirus, and that's what Kiyafli, that's what we're learning about from the pasuk of Kiyafli by Nazir. And the Gemara says, Hanichol Rabbi Tarfon, well, that's a good answer according to Rabbi Tarfon. Elul Rabbanan Michael Meimar, what are you going to say according to the Rabbanan? They don't have this halacha of Rabbi Tarfon. And the Gemara says to that, Elamim Boile L'Chiratanya, rather the pasuk Kiyafli is needed for the following brisa. The brisa says, Heter Nedarim Porchin Ba'avir. When it comes to the fact that we can be mater Nedarim, it flies in the air, so to speak. It has nothing to rely on. Ve'einlan al mashi yismochu. There's no real source for this idea that we can undo a neder. Rabbi Eliezer Omer, Rabbi Eliezer says, no, there is a source. Yeishlav al mashi yismochu. There is what to rely on. Shenemar, like the pasuk says, Ish Kiyafli. It's learned from this very pasuk of Ish Kiyafli. Kiyafli shtei pam. It says it twice. Echad haflo le'isr v'echad haflo le'heter. One is talking about the general concept of hafla, that a person can create a vow and it creates a prohibition, and the other is talking about this idea that one can undo a vow. That comes from this pasuk, and so therefore again that's why Kiyafli is written by Nazir. And Rashi explains, Michti ha'iskish Nazirus l'Nadarim. Let us see, Nazirus is already compared to Nadarim. K'dichsiv neder Nazir, it says neder Nazir. Over Nadarim ksiv hafla, by Nadarim it already says hafla. V'kevan Nadarim ksiv hafla by Nazirus lamali. If it already says hafla by Nadarim, what do we need it by Nazirus? And so the Gemara answered, Leisuya yadayim shein and mochichos dahavin yadayim. It's to include yadayim shein and mochichos bein ben Nazirus bein ben Nadarim. The Rashi explains, we're talking here whether by Nazirus or by Nadarim. For both of them, yadayim shein and mochichos are being included. But Nazir could go in Damar Aha. By a Nazir, a person would say like Aha, or Chedamar Le'el Parakama, cases we had in the first parak, could go in Shanazir over Lefanav. There's a Nazir in front of him, and he's saying something that indicates maybe that he wants to be a Nazir as well. Well, Agabi Nadarim Nami could go in Damar Mudrinim Imcha Da'asr Shiana Mishalo, V'lo Amrinan Dilma Lo Mishta'ina Ba'adach Kamar. Again, by Nadarim also, he says a phrase could be interpreted in a different fashion, could be interpreted as a neder. Chedamar Parakama, the Nadarim, those cases were discussed in the first parak of Nadarim. But according to the one who says it's not Yadayim, what are we going to say? That's a machlokas Abai and Rav in the first parak of Nadarim. Hanichol Rabbi Tarfon el Rabban, and then the Gemara had a suggestion. Maybe it's for Rabbi Tarfon's teaching. What are you going to say according to the Rabbanan? Da'amri beperkan de el shakulam Nazirim. They say again, you have a situation where they all declare this Nazirus, and it's dependent on certain factors. So the Rabbanan say they are Nazirim. So Ma'ikol Memar. So what are you going to say according to that? And so the Gemara said it's used for the following idea: Heter Nadarim Parchin Ba'avir Ha'olam. The general idea of being mater neder. So that's really something that doesn't have a source. Shein lan mikra min atorah mashi yismochu. There's no pasuk. Shenemar kiyafli echad ben Nazir ve'echad ben Nadarim. It says kiyafli twice. Again, once by Nazir and once by Nadarim. Echad haflo le'isr shelo levatel saneder keshein bo charata. One is talking about the fact that you can pronounce a neder and it creates a prohibition. If there's no charata, you can't undo that. Ve'echad haflo leheter. The other one is the idea of undoing it, kesheyesh bo charata, by cases of charata, of regret, of Meseches Chagiga Koi. This is Meseches Chagiga, and we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Samech Beis Amud Beis.